I got the photo 2 days after my birthday. It came in a plain white envelope. No return address, no note. Just a single glossy print inside. I thought it was a mistake at first. Maybe someone mailed it to the wrong guy. But when I turned it over and saw the back, there was a timestamp. March 5th, 2022. And the name of the photo lab. Then I looked at the front again. My wife, my best friend, Erin, kissing. In my garage. I must have stared at it for 5 minutes. My thumb rubbing the corner raw. I kept blinking like it would change, like it couldn't be real. My house, my wife, my friend. His hand was on her waist like he'd done it 1,000 times before. I was 6,000 miles away when that photo was taken. Somewhere in the Kandahar province. Boots caked in dust and blood. I hadn't been home in 11 months. I'd FaceTimed Melissa the night before that photo was taken. She was wearing one of my hoodies and telling me she missed me. She even made me show her my bunk like she'd never seen it before. I felt like throwing up. The next day, I requested emergency leave. It took 2 weeks, a mountain of paperwork, and a lot of patience from a colonel who probably saw the storm behind my eyes and didn't ask questions. When I finally got back, it was early April. The grass in our front yard was longer than it should have been. Melissa hadn't mentioned anything about the mower breaking down. Not that I expected her to keep the yard up by herself, but it was one of those small details that stuck with me, like something had shifted while I was gone. She was waiting at the door when I pulled up, arms crossed, fake smile on her face. She kissed me like nothing had changed, like she hadn't turned our life into a damn lie. I didn't say anything. Not at first. I just held her. I needed time. I needed to figure out how deep this went before I made a move. I was still clinging to this delusion that maybe it was just a kiss. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe Erin had been drinking. Maybe she'd pushed him away. But when I saw his truck parked 2 blocks over 3 days later, in the middle of a workday, I stopped believing in maybes. That's when the unraveling began. It was Thursday morning when I saw his truck. Erin drives a beat-up old Tacoma with a dent in the tailgate and one missing hubcap. I'd recognize it anywhere. We did enough camping trips together, enough mornings with muddy boots and fishing poles wedged between the seats. It was parked near the side street that runs behind our cul-de-sac, tucked halfway between 2 houses like he didn't want to be seen, like he knew what he was doing was wrong. Melissa had said she was working from home that day, said she was slammed with back-to-back Zoom meetings. She even asked me to take our dog, Finn, out so she wouldn't be interrupted. So I walked Finn early. Then I circled back and parked my rental at the gas station 3 blocks away. I needed to be sure. From the alley, I had a clear view of our back patio. Curtains drawn, of course. Front blinds too. But I waited. Maybe an hour. Maybe 2. Then I saw him. Erin, coming out the back sliding door like he lived there. Shirt untucked, wiping his mouth with the back of his hand, checking his phone. He walked like he was relaxed. Like this wasn't the first time. He kissed her goodbye on the cheek. My wife. She smiled at him. Not the kind of smile you give someone you regret being with. I had to physically stop myself from walking up and swinging on him right there. My hands were shaking so hard I dropped Finn's leash. My chest felt like it was going to rip open. But I didn't move, because that's when it hit me. If Erin was this bold, he wasn't the only one. See, Erin and I were close. But not that close. Not, let me sleep with your wife, close. And for her to risk our whole life for him, that didn't sit right. It was too easy, too casual. I started thinking about Brandon, my other best friend. Brandon had come by a lot during my deployment. At least, that's what Melissa said. He helped fix the leaky faucet, replace the garbage disposal, even put up the new curtain rods I ordered before I left. She'd text me pictures of little house projects he'd finished. Brandon to the rescue again. Back then, it didn't seem weird. He was handy. She wasn't. But now, with Erin walking out of my backyard like it was his Saturday ritual, I felt something twist in my gut. That next day, I invited Brandon out for a beer. He hesitated, said work had been crazy, said he wasn't feeling great. I pushed, told him I needed to talk, that I was struggling since I got back. He caved. We met at a dive bar off 18th Street. It smelled like old carpet and fryer oil. We'd been there 100 times before. But this time, he couldn't look me in the eye. And when I asked him straight out if he'd seen Aaron hanging around Melissa while I was gone, he froze. Didn't say yes. Didn't say no. Just this long pause, and then a soft, "I think you should talk to her." Man, that was all I needed to hear. That night, I didn't sleep. I just kept seeing that moment at the bar, how Brandon's eyes darted around like he was looking for the fire exit, how his shoulders sank when he said, "I think you should talk to her." He wouldn't even finish his beer. I sat in the driveway after I got home, watching the light in our bedroom window. She was up there, probably brushing her teeth like it was any other night, like she hadn't detonated my whole life in my absence. I couldn't go inside yet, not with all that rage sitting just below my skin. So I pulled out my phone and did something I probably should have done a long time ago. I looked at our Wi-Fi history. See, before I left for deployment, I set up a login to the router. It logs all devices, timestamps, what gets accessed. It was meant to keep an eye on the house and help her with tech stuff if something went wrong, but I'd never actually used it. Now I did, and what I saw made my stomach drop. Aaron's phone had been connected to our network almost weekly, sometimes overnight. Brandon's? A few times too, usually on weekends. But one weekend stood out. June 17th. That weekend, Melissa had told me she was going to her sister's cabin with a few girlfriends. She even showed me a picture of them by a lake. Said it was just a girls' weekend. Brandon's phone was connected to our Wi-Fi the whole time. I opened up my old texts from her that weekend. She sent me a video of the fire pit, laughing with her friends. It looked dark, quiet, peaceful. But I zoomed in, froze the frame. The pillows on the porch swing? Those were our pillows. On our porch. She never left the house. The lies weren't even clever. They were just stacked on top of each other, hoping I'd be too far away to see the seams. I knew what I had to do next. I called a lawyer. The lawyer was a woman named Karen Jameson. Mid-40s, sharp eyes, sharper voice. I told her I didn't have concrete proof of an affair yet, but I was working on it. She asked if I wanted a divorce. I didn't answer right away. "I want the truth," I said. "Well," she replied, "the truth's expensive, but not impossible." She put me in touch with a private investigator, a guy named Seth who looked like he'd walked off the set of a crime drama. Bald, worn leather jacket, smelled faintly of cigars. I liked him immediately. "I need to know how far this goes," I told him. I think she slept with both of them. Maybe more." He nodded. "We'll find out." And we did. It didn't take long. Melissa wasn't exactly subtle. Security footage from a neighbor's ring cam caught Aaron arriving late at night, staying for hours. Seth followed them once, caught them holding hands in a grocery store parking lot, kissing in her car. But the real kicker came from an unexpected place. Brandon's ex-girlfriend. She reached out to me out of the blue. Said she saw Brandon texting Melissa late at night, even while they were still together. One night, he left her place and didn't come back until morning. Told her he crashed at a friend's. She recognized Melissa's voice on a voicemail once, laughing in the background. She didn't want to get involved, she said. But she also knew I deserved better. I thanked her, and then I went home. And I told Melissa to sit down. She sat down at the kitchen table like I just asked her to pick out a movie. Calm, polished. Even put her hair behind her ear like she used to when we were dating, and I'd tell her I had something important to say. I was standing. I needed the height. I needed something to keep me from crumbling. "I know about Aaron," I said. She blinked. That was it. Not shock. Not guilt. Just a blink. "Okay," she said slowly, like she was testing the weight of the word. "I saw the photo," I added. "And I know about the Wi-Fi. I know he's been coming here." "I saw him leave, Melissa. I saw him." She looked down at her hands, folded them neatly, like she was at a job interview. "I was lonely," she said finally. "You were gone for a long time. You were cheating on me in my house," I snapped. "You think I care how lonely you were?" She flinched, but she didn't deny it. Then I asked the next question. "Was there anyone else?" That's when she hesitated. Her eyes flicked upward, then down again. I don't want to make this worse." "You already have." She bit her lip. "It wasn't serious with Brandon. It just happened. More than once." "Yes." I pulled out the chair across from her and sat down. My knees were shaking. I gripped the edge of the table like it was the only thing anchoring me to the earth. "So let me get this straight," I said. "While I was getting shot at in a desert halfway around the world, You slept with both of my best friends." Her silence was louder than any answer. I waited. I think I was waiting for her to cry, to apologize, to feel something. But all she said was, "I didn't think you'd ever find out." That was the moment I knew it was over. Not just the marriage, but the illusion. The version of Melissa I had carried in my head for years. The woman who kissed me goodbye at the airport and told me to come home safe. That woman was a ghost now. What sat in front of me was a stranger who didn't even have the decency to look ashamed. So I told her I'd be moving out for now. I told her I'd already talked to a lawyer. And I told her I was filing for divorce. She stared at me for a second, and then, "This part still gets me," she laughed. "Good luck," she said. "You think a judge is going to give a soldier a pass just because his wife had some fun while he was gone?" That's when I saw it. The smugness. The entitlement. The ugly little smirk. She thought she'd win. I didn't say another word. Just stood up, grabbed my bag, and left. But in that moment, in her kitchen, I made myself a promise. She would regret every smug second of it. I moved into a buddy's basement the next day. Mike, another vet, offered me the space before I even asked. Didn't say much. Just handed me a beer, clapped a hand on my shoulder, and said, "Stay as long as you need." That first week was a blur. Karen, my lawyer, got the ball rolling. Emergency motion for exclusive use of the marital home. Temporary custody filing for the dog. Collection of all financials. And then the part that really mattered. Discovery. Melissa thought she was untouchable. But Karen was relentless. "She wants to play games?" Karen said. "We'll play." We subpoenaed phone records, bank statements, social media logs. All of it. Within 2 weeks, we had screenshots of payments Melissa had made to Aaron, Venmo, labeled as groceries and car wash, and once, unbelievably, dog food. Aaron doesn't have a dog. We also got messages between her and Brandon, retrieved from his iCloud backup. They'd tried to wipe most of them, but nothing's ever really gone. One message from her read, "He's still overseas. You could come over tonight if you want. Same key spot. Same key spot. Same key spot." Brandon had used my key, the one I'd hidden behind the porch light in case of emergencies. He knew about it because he helped me install it. They used it like it was their hotel room. But the real bombshell came in the form of a journal. Seth, the PI, had convinced Brandon's ex to talk again. She remembered Melissa mentioning a little book she wrote in, one she was afraid to keep in the house. Said she stored it in the trunk of her car under the spare tire. Seth followed up. Sure enough, he found it. It was a confessional, basically. Rambling thoughts, dates, emotional outbursts. But within the pages were direct admissions. March 10th. I love both of them in different ways. Aaron is sweet. Brandon is more passionate. I don't want to choose. June 17th. He slept over again. First time we woke up together. Felt so normal it scared me. I didn't even think about my husband until after. July 4th. Brandon said he'd leave his girlfriend. I told him I'd wait. I lied. She wasn't just cheating. She was orchestrating a soap opera while I was fighting a war. I sat with Karen and we went through every page. "This," she said, tapping the entry from June, "is gold." I asked her what it meant for the case. Spousal misconduct, financial waste, emotional cruelty. This gives us leverage for alimony, property division, and if she dares contest anything, we bring the whole thing to court. She'll wish she'd taken a quiet settlement. I nodded. But part of me wanted the court battle. I wanted the world to hear what she'd done. Then came the day she was served. She opened the door wearing workout leggings and a ponytail. The process server handed her the packet. She glanced down, confused. Then she saw the signature on the front page. Mine. I was watching from Mike's truck across the street. She didn't cry. She threw the papers at the door like it would make them disappear. Melissa didn't respond right away. Her lawyer filed for an extension, standard tactic to stall and rattle the other side. Karen wasn't fazed. We used the time to gather more. We found receipts for hotel stays. One, notably, while I was home on a surprise leave for 72 hours. She told me she was staying with her mom to give me time to decompress. Turns out she was decompressing with Brandon at a Best Western 10 miles away. Every week, Another domino fell. Every week, Melissa's case got weaker. When we finally made it to her deposition, I almost didn't recognize her. Hair curled, full makeup, designer handbag in the crook of her arm, like she was heading to brunch instead of getting grilled under oath. She tried to play it cool at first, smiled at the court reporter, crossed her legs delicately. Then Karen began. Can you confirm the date of your marriage? Yes. And during your husband's deployment, how many times did Aaron come to the house? Melissa blinked. He's a friend. He came by a few times to help with things. Help with what? I don't remember exactly. Just around the house. Karen slid a photograph across the table. This is him kissing you behind your garage. Is that what you mean by help? Melissa's face froze. He kissed me. It was a mistake. I pushed him away. Karen didn't flinch. How many mistakes were there? We have surveillance showing him arriving weekly. I don't remember. Do you remember writing this? Karen asked, pulling out a photocopy of the journal entry from March. Melissa stared down. Her lip twitched. I never meant for this to happen. Did you ever tell your husband you were seeing anyone else? No. So you knowingly misled your husband while he was on active duty, engaging in romantic and sexual relationships with not one, but two men he considered his best friends. I didn't. Yes or no? Silence. Yes. That was it. That was the moment the whole room changed. Even her lawyer looked down at his notes like he couldn't believe he was sitting there. Afterward, Karen leaned toward me and whispered, that went better than I expected. Melissa must have known it too, because the next day she texted me, can we please talk? Just us. No lawyers. I showed Karen the message. Want to hear her out? She asked. I want to see what she looks like when she begs. We met in the park where we used to walk Finn. She was already sitting on the bench, wearing sunglasses even though it was cloudy. You're really doing this, she said. I didn't respond. She took off the sunglasses. Her eyes were red. I don't know why I did it. I was scared. You were gone so long, and I felt invisible. You made me invisible, I said. You didn't just cheat. You humiliated me. You picked them. Both of them. She looked away. I want to fix this, she said quietly. I'll go to counseling. We can rebuild. You slept with my two best friends, Melissa, while I was serving our country. There's no rebuilding. She started crying. Real tears this time. But it was too late. You thought I wouldn't come home, I said. That's the part that kills me. You thought I wouldn't know. Then I stood up. I'll see you in court. The court date was set for late September. By then, Melissa had gone quiet. No more texts. No more calls. Her lawyer tried floating a settlement, 50-50th split of everything, no fault assigned, and each of us keeping our own vehicles. Karen laughed when she read it. She's scared, she said. That means we're doing it right. We declined, politely. Instead, Karen filed to have the journal entered as evidence. She also filed for misconduct to be considered in division of property, since my deployment was classified as a hardship period under the Uniformed Services Former Spouses Protection Act. Basically, it meant the court could weigh her behavior more heavily because she betrayed me while I was actively serving. She didn't see that coming. Meanwhile, Aaron and Brandon were ghosts. I hadn't spoken to either of them. Aaron moved out of state, from what I heard. Brandon deleted his socials. Last I knew, he was crashing with his cousin in Tennessee. Mutual friends stopped mentioning them entirely. Even their absence felt like betrayal. These were men I'd known since I was 19. Men I trusted with my life. And they sold me out for, what? A few nights of attention? The thrill of sneaking around? I wasn't just grieving Melissa. I was grieving them, too. The week of the trial, my nerves were shot. I barely slept. I ran every morning just to burn off the anxiety. Mike kept telling me to breathe, that the truth was on my side. But still, it was my life being picked apart. On the morning of the hearing, I put on my dress blues. Not to show off, to remind myself who I was. We walked into that courtroom and everything felt colder than I expected. The judge was stern, late 50s, with the kind of expression that didn't allow much wiggle room. Melissa sat 2 tables over in a black blazer and slacks. She didn't look at me once. Her lawyer opened with the standard statement, irreconcilable differences, difficult circumstances, loneliness during deployment. He tried to emphasize that Melissa's actions, while regrettable, were isolated incidents and not relevant to the division of assets. Karen stood up slowly. Your Honor, we have documented evidence of ongoing, deliberate deception, financial misconduct, and emotional abuse of a deployed service member by his spouse. She laid out the journal entries, the text logs, the surveillance. Then she turned to Melissa. Did you sleep with two of your husband's closest friends while he was deployed? Melissa's voice was barely a whisper. Yes. Did you continue these relationships after your husband returned? Yes. Did you ever disclose these affairs to your husband willingly? No. Karen rested her case. The judge rubbed his temple and asked a few questions. How long we'd been married? If there were children? No. If either party had concealed assets? Melissa had tried to cash out a small investment account. Seth caught it. Then came the verdict. The judge leaned forward slightly. He didn't smile. He didn't scold. He just spoke clearly, every word like a stone hitting the floor. I've reviewed the evidence. It is extensive. He glanced toward Melissa, then back to Karen. While infidelity alone does not necessarily influence the division of marital assets in this jurisdiction, the circumstances here are unique. He paused. My chest tightened. This was not a momentary lapse. This was a calculated, prolonged deception, conducted while the petitioner was deployed overseas in service of this country. Melissa shifted in her seat. Her jaw tightened. The judge continued. The court finds credible evidence of marital misconduct, including financial dissipation, unauthorized use of joint funds for the benefit of extramarital partners. He turned to my lawyer. Petitioner's request for majority asset allocation is granted. I looked at Karen. She gave me a tiny nod. But the judge wasn't done. Furthermore, the court grants the petitioner full ownership of the marital home and denies the respondent's request for spousal support. Melissa's mouth fell open. And finally, he said, lifting one more document, the court awards the petitioner sole ownership of the dog, Finn, as both financial and emotional custody was primarily maintained by him before, during, and after deployment. I didn't realize I'd been holding my breath until then. Melissa sat motionless, not crying, not yelling, just stunned. The judge stood. This matter is concluded. We stepped into the hallway, and I remember the exact moment it hit me. It was over. Not just the court battle, but the chapter of my life that I'd been clinging to like it still meant something. Karen patted my arm. You did everything right. She can't touch you now. Thank you, I said. You're free, she said simply. Now go live like it. Melissa caught up with me just outside the courthouse. I can't believe they gave you everything, she said, her voice shaking. You made me look like a monster. You did that yourself, I replied. You don't think you're being cruel? Cruel? I blinked. Cruel as sleeping with two of my best friends while I was dodging IEDs and thinking about your birthday gift. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. And then she said the one thing I'll never forget. I didn't think you'd win. I looked at her, really looked. The woman who used to be everything to me. Now just a stranger. I did, I said. And I hope you think about that every time you see an empty house key in your drawer. Then I walked away. The house felt different when I moved back in. Not because it looked any different. Melissa hadn't bothered to take much when she left. Most of her stuff had already found its way into storage during the divorce. She didn't fight for the furniture or the art we picked out together. Not even the little lamp by the stairs she used to love. But the air had changed. It was quieter. Not peaceful exactly. Just honest. There was no more pretending. No more second-guessing texts or wondering who was at the door. I could breathe again. Finn padded around the house that first night, sniffing everything like he was trying to figure out what changed. Eventually, he curled up at the foot of my bed like he used to before the deployment. We both slept better than we had in months. Word got around fast. In a town like ours, things don't stay private long. Even courtroom transcripts. People I hadn't spoken to in years started messaging me. Old coworkers, neighbors, a couple of Melissa's ex-friends. One message from a mutual acquaintance stuck with me. I never liked how close she was with Aaron, but I figured it was harmless. I'm sorry, man. You didn't deserve that. Another came from Aaron's sister. I don't know if you care, but Aaron's been laying low in Colorado. He's not with her. Brandon's gone too. Whole friend group kind of fell apart after everything came out. Thought you'd want to know. I didn't reply. I didn't care where they ended up. That chapter was over. They could rot in peace. A few weeks later, Karen called to wrap things up. She said Melissa had officially withdrawn her appeal notice. Guess she knows she can't win, she said. I'm closing your file. I thanked her, told her she saved me. She paused. No, she said. You saved yourself. I just held the flashlight while you found your way out. I sat with that for a long time after the call, because it was true. Then one afternoon, out of nowhere, Melissa emailed me. Subject line, closure? She wrote 3 paragraphs. Apologized again. Said she hoped I was doing well. Told me she regretted how things ended and hoped maybe one day we could talk again as people, not as enemies. I stared at that email for maybe 20 minutes. Then I archived it. No reply. Some things don't deserve closure. It's been 5 months since the verdict. The leaves started to turn last week. Finn and I go walking every morning now, same route, same park bench, different feeling in my chest. The nightmares I used to have, the ones about combat, about coming home to an empty house, don't visit much anymore. I've repainted most of the rooms. Not because they needed it, but because I did. It felt good to cover the walls we'd built together in fresh color. I even took down the framed wedding photo from the hallway. It had hung there like a lie for too long. Replaced it with a map of Afghanistan, black and white, marked with the location of my old FOB. It reminds me of where I've been and what I survived. Victory didn't feel like a parade. It felt like getting my name back, my time, my dignity. It felt like waking up and not wondering if someone was lying to my face. It felt like standing in court, wearing the uniform I earned, while a woman who thought she'd broken me was forced to admit, under oath, what she'd done. It felt like knowing that I had proof, not just pain. The court gave me the house, the car, the dog. But what they really gave me was the chance to start over without pretending. I don't hear from Melissa anymore. Last I heard, she was living in a studio apartment outside of town, working part-time. She sold the ring for a few $100, and from what someone said, she's still blaming the system for how it all went down. Not herself, not the choices, just the consequences. Typical.